Hello and welcome to the A&P. I am Alex Johansson and my co-host Patrick McCallum. Patrick,
Hello, everyone. How are you getting on?
we're having logical discussions about the state of the world. Let's get into it, brother. Heyo, Patrick.
How are you getting on, buddy?
I brought your fellow countryman in here, Joe.ie. Well, he's not actually in studio. We're just going to be...
he's just a presenter from Joe.ie.
Yeah.
Joe.ie is actually an Irish website. Yeah.
Oh, so is he Joe or is he someone who works at Joe.ie?
He just works at Joe.ie. Probably one of their presenters.
All right. Looks like he's got some books in the back there. We got some I Want to Go Home, But I'm Already There. The Coming Storm. Good old Dan Hancock going on there.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, reasonable, good enough selection.
No, not too bad. Can't fault him. But we might find some fault in his logic and the things he's saying. It's possible. I don't know. I've never seen Not Joe at Joe.ie. So let's see what this young fellow with a slappable face has to say. What do you think?
Yeah, let's see.
Ireland isn't full. Ireland is one of the only countries in the world whose population has decreased in the last 200 years. There were over a million more.
Yeah.
But why did it decrease?
We had a small thing in Ireland called the famine.
The famine. That's the thing where people starve, right? That's the
we lost about 70 to 80% of our population during that time period, during the Great Irish Famine.
Something to do with potatoes, I believe. Something happened.
What happened was we had a massive population increase, but potatoes then were the only source of food. Well, one of the major sources of food at the time, because you can grow so much on a small plot of land.
Right.
But the potato blight hit Ireland, and first year it really hit hard, but it has continued on hitting Ireland. That caused a lot of death, starvation. A lot of people left Ireland and moved to likes of New York and all over the world, really.
There was a great diaspora. And some of your folks actually ended up in Australia and the like. So,
yeah,
all right. Well,
everywhere in the world.
So Joe would like to tell us that you guys lost population, and it's your contention it was probably the blight of potatoes during the Great Famine. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. It's in the history books.
Well, you seem to read those. You seem to be a bit of a history buff.
I wouldn't mind, but this young man went through the same history training in probably primary and secondary school that we all did. So he should know this, but he's only reading off a script, I think.
Oh, I don't know. Then he might have written it himself, though. I don't know.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah.
He is a journalist from Joe.ie, so I'm assuming he is a professional.
Oh, yes. All journalists are very professional and honest people.
Especially this one, Patrick. Especially. Not like our friend from episode 1. Remember that guy? We had some issues with him.
Yeah.
Mr. Connor. Ugh. Gross. All right.
More people living on the island in the 1840s than there are now. The small matter of the systemic starvation of the native Irish population was much to do with that. Ireland also has one of the lowest population densities, not only in Europe, but the world. The country is underpopulated, under-resourced, and rural communities have been underserved for generations.
Does that sound like... Okay, so that is a correct statement. Okay.
That is correct. A lot of rural towns and villages have been underserved for years.
Well, is that like in Northern Ireland and Donegal and Joyce and Mayo, or is that even south in Cork and Limerick and all that?
It'd be more like the Midlands, especially the Midlands, the middle of Ireland, because there's such a small population, because everyone obviously moves either to Dublin or towards the coastal areas, which happens in every major country in the world. Even if in the United States, most of your population are on both sides of the coast, if you know what I mean.
Right. Well, in the Midwest in the United States, they're called flyover states, because, like, do you really want to stop in the middle of Ohio or Nebraska?
Yeah,
not particularly, unless you like corn.
We have counties like that as well. We have like some, especially Mayo. There's other counties that are equally underpopulated at the moment. Right. It doesn't mean that Ireland is not full. But when people see the headline, Ireland is full, what we're talking about is our public services are full.
Okay. So your infrastructure is at capacity functionally.
Yes.
Until your infrastructure is improved, then asylees and other kinds of immigration, either legal or illegal, is just going to make things more difficult because everything's already maxed out.
Exactly. Same as any other modern European country.
Well, I know you can't see it, but one of the comments that I can see to Joe.ie is from True to You 84. And it says housing full, hospitals full, schools full, prisons full, public transportation full, GP services full. What's GP services?
General practitioner, basically your local doctor.
Right. So in the United States, that's primary care physicians, so PCP, but general practitioner
Yeah.
is another way to put it. Okay. Social services full. Asylum accommodations full. Ireland is full. That's from True to You 84. I believe he is disagreeing with not Joe from Joe.ie. So
Yes.
We even get into the lack of investment in infrastructure in towns and cities across the country. What the Irish far right have latched onto is a feeling that the majority of Irish people have been forgotten by the government. In a country where over 100,000 properties are vacant or derelict, and 15,000 people
I want to go back a little bit because he said something super interesting.
generations. Before we even get into the lack of investment in infrastructure in towns and cities across the country, what the Irish far right have latched onto is a feeling that the majority of Irish people have been forgotten by the government.
What is Joe.ie defining as the far right? What group of people is that the?
That is a very, very good question. In Ireland at the moment, anyone who disagrees with the government's immigration policies is classified as far right, or anyone who steps up and says, "Look, enough is enough," is classified as far right.
Or is that Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil? But
I think it's all major parties. All major parties have done kind of.
So is Joe.ie like? Do they pimp for people before profit, or what?
Oh no, they're very left leaning. They're very, very left leaning news organization. Very left leaning.
Right, but the thing is no. I don't know who is identifying as far right. So if I don't know the group of people, I can't go find their counter argument. If he's just vaguely stating the far right, then if he doesn't say something like Fianna Fáil said this, Fine Gael said this, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like then I don't know.
They're very careful of not naming out the parties. If you notice here, or Fine Gael said these people are far right. He hasn't gone that far. I don't think he will. Most journalists don't want to upset the apple cart too much. They don't mind.
Was that just political fire? Is that the problem?
Yeah.
And there's a third major party, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, and Sinn Féin, right? Those are the three big ones, right? So why wouldn't he say that Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, or X group of people who are represented by these constituencies, MPs, or even the Taoiseach, or you know what I'm saying?
You have to be very careful of what you say and do in Ireland in a lot of ways, because I think what people don't understand is we have freedom of expression in Ireland, not freedom of speech, like the United States.
It feels like a distinction without difference. It honestly does.
It does. But the big difference is if I stand and say stand outside a door and I can't say, there's certain things you can and cannot say in public. Where if I go to the United States, I could stand outside the White House and say whatever comes to my mind.
But you only have a First Amendment right in the United States if you're a citizen. If you're here on a visa or if you're a tourist, then you can say some things, but there's some kind of speech for you that would not be protected, right?
Yes, but as a U.S. citizen, you can go up to, say, Washington, D.C.
For sure. I can hold a sign that says, I say dumb things and you have to look at my dumb sign. I can say that.
Yes. You can say whatever you want. We have, there's a fine line in Ireland, especially with different laws that we have.
With a fine line like that means like if you say something that hurts my feelings, I can call the Gardaí and say, hey, look, this fellow, Patrick McCallum, hurt my feelers, and then the Gardaí is going to come pick you up. Like, where's the marketplace of ideas? Where are these things going to be talked about where I can say, hey, not Joe at Joe.ie, this is conceptually what I believe to be true. Let's work this out, right? Let's create some syllogistic arguments. Let's look for places where we can, collude on concepts and places where we're going to have to give and take a little bit, right?
Yeah, that's what I've been saying to you for a long time. Like, I think people from especially like yourself from the United States can understand the difference, that they don't understand that they're probably one of the few countries that has freedom of speech, rightly or wrongly, but they still have that right. Where a lot of countries don't have that right. Yes, we can say what we want to a certain degree, but then there's laws that we have to follow as well on top.
Right, but it just seems like it's it seems like it's overly moderated.
Yes.
Right, and then it seems like if there's bad faith actors in your government from whatever party, Sinn Féin, people before private, it doesn't matter who, right? If they say, hey, you've fallen outside the Overton window for appropriate speech because I said, then how are you ever going to have a marketplace of ideas where you can firmly flesh those things out and figure out what's going on. Is that even a thing that you can do?
It is. It's a thing we can do, but it's like we can do it, say, on say, news programs where you ring in and you be called Jim or Mick or whatever. You won't be using your real names, obviously, because you're going to have the Gardaí knocking your door asking you a load of questions.
Well, right. That's why you're Patrick, not Patrick, and I'm Alex, not Alex, right? I get that.
Yeah.
Right.
Pretty much, it's the same. Yeah, we have to abide by certain laws in Ireland.
Well, I'm not looking to break laws. That's not what I'm looking to do. Is get these things out there so people can manipulate these concepts. But I don't like that feeling that at any point the Gardaí can come up to me if I were in Ireland and say, you can't say these words in this order. That just feels asinine to an American citizen. It feels stupid.
But we're not the only. The sad part is every country has their own set of laws and speech laws and so on. I think what happens is a lot of young people, especially young people, when they go into these protests, say abroad, like in Ireland, okay, the Gardaí have the power to do lots of things, but normally they don't. They don't go overboard. If you know what I mean, they're not that kind of police force. You know what I mean?
Right. Negative speech laws. It's like blasphemy laws, right?
Yeah, pretty much. We got rid of the blasphemy laws, but obviously we replaced them with something else. But in fairness to the Gardaí, they've kind of took a very balanced approach. But still, it's anytime you limit anyone's speech, you run the risk of limiting all speech.
Right. Well, didn't Ireland put into place some of the things that the Scottish government tried to put in as well? I mean, they ran through a bunch of crazy stuff.
Yes, they proposed different laws. It was sent back for reassessment. It got close, but
was that from the Dáil or the Seanad? Did the Seanad kick it down?
From the Dáil itself, the Dáil drew that up.
Oh, so the Dáil said no.
No, the Seanad and a lot of the members, TDs, have sent it back to the Attorney General to make sure it's still in line with our Constitution. So it was kind of roadblocked there.
Right, but if you have a freedom of expression, those laws are the equivalent of blasphemy laws. Right? If I can never say anything that's offensive to anyone, I can't say anything at all because somebody's feelings are going to get in the way, which means you've restricted all ability for us to move forward with any kind of discourse, political or otherwise. I can't order a Guinness at the pub without, can I please have a Guinness? And I will not use any inflection in my voice so that the sound of my voice doesn't piss you off, but I'd really like a beer if you don't mind. Like modulated bullshit voice, right? That's what that becomes. Crazy. Zero bandwidth, zero emotional investment, zero inflection. That's just, we're not robots, we're humans, man.
But the funny thing about this is when I see a lot of the protests, especially the pro-Palestinian protests, they can stand in the middle of most streets in Ireland and wish death upon an entire civilization. And not one member of the Gardaí will stop them from hate speech.
Okay.
Which it technically is. It's technically hate speech, no matter what.
No, it's not technically hate speech. It's actually hate speech. When you're like, go kill people because they're not like you, you're othering people. That's what a hate speech thing is, right? And that's a form of blasphemy that'd be blasphemy from another angle, right? But
pretty much.
But they don't get pulled up short for that? They don't get yanked off the street for saying wild, foul shit?
Yeah, but it was funny because I've seen, I accidentally walked into a big, massive protest in Dublin there a couple weeks ago,
You were telling me about that. Five different groups with megaphones going nuts, like, my thing's super important.
It was actually the pro-immigration crowd, anti-immigration crowd, and there was a load of different people.
We said the housing crowd was out there, and the farmers crowd was there.
Crowd over there. It was a whole thing. And in fairness, we don't really have much trouble or protests. Very rarely we do. Very rarely.
Does Ireland have like a speaker's corner like they have in the UK? Do they have a spot like that?
They don't even have that in the UK. They say, we have a speaker's corner, but it's closed at the moment. That's the
UK. You can talk here, but not really. All right, let's get back to Joe, not Joe.
In a country where over 100,000 properties are vacant or derelict,
so are those 100,000 properties vacant or derelict? Or, well, if they're derelict,
Yes.
they're vacant,
Yes.
but are there actual structures that are tenable for residents, like a residential spot?
Are they structures fit to turn the key, move into?
Correct.
Is that what you're asking? No.
Yes.
A lot of
No.
them aren't.
Okay.
No. Most of what happened is from 2007, 2008, and 2009, we had a massive property crash in Ireland. And a lot of these vacant estates were only half finished, or some way of being even some of the sites. I'm going to put it, the foundation work was done, but there was no houses.
But was it financial issues? Was it government getting in the way? Were there too many?
No, it wasn't the government getting in the way. What happened was a lot of these properties went into foreclosure, and then the banks took them over, and then the banks sold them off to NAMA.
What's NAMA?
NAMA was our money management agency that was set up to manage all the massive debts that these banks had. All these derelict properties, not just in Ireland, by the way, all over the world.
Right, so they buy properties that are untenable and unsaleable for X amount. They can't sell for that much, so they lose massively on the deal, right?
So NAMA's idea was they would take the properties, and over the next couple of years, as property prices obviously go up, they would sell them off piece by piece. They make back our money.
Okay.
Which worked out very well, by the way, has made a profit, so on. But still, we have these massive, like a lot of this now is in the Midlands.
Oh, right.
If you know what I mean, a lot of these derelict. So there is, so a lot of infrastructure would have to be put in place in order to get these estates up to standard of livable. Now, what also happened, which he's technically right, is Ireland is, he doesn't seem to address, I don't know if he is going to address it, is the properties that were already open to be rented and so on have also been taken over by people coming into this country. I don't think he'll touch on this. But that's when people say Ireland is full with the housing issue. It's full because there's nowhere to rent or buy.
Okay. All right. So Longford, Roscommon, Cavan, Offaly, Lattice, Tipperary, Limerick, like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of, as I said, there's states spread all over the country. And the councils have said it to the government, we'll need X amount of money to even begin putting these places into order. And so, and some of them, as one county council said, it'd be easier just to flatten and start from scratch. I mean, it'd be cheaper.
Makes sense, yeah.
Because a lot of these estates have been derelict for nearly 15 years, in some cases.
Okay. Does Northern Ireland have the same kind of issues? Or is that not an issue that the Republic of Ireland is really concerned about at this point?
No, as they say, we more try to manage our own house. I know Northern Ireland has its own issues at the moment. When it comes to, I think everywhere around the world has a problem with housing at the moment.
Right.
Because the crash hit everyone all at once. When all the builders went under, people stopped building houses and apartments and so on. So for years, there was no one building houses or apartments anywhere, not just in Ireland.
Oh, right. We were talking about that in one of our episodes where, was it the UK and Ireland has this thing where the government is renting out like the entire hotel, right?
Yes.
Every room, every night. And there isn't a proper tier in the world trying to make money that isn't going to take that deal, right?
Yeah.
Because
and hotels have to.
Mm-hmm.
Hotels have to, because our tourist industry, just like most Western countries, is down.
Right.
And because people are not traveling as much. People are scared when uncertainty happens in the world. People stay at home and save their money because they don't know what's going to happen down the road.
Right.
And that's down to multiple factors. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay, let's get back to this. 15,000 homeless. Does that look about right?
Yeah. It's not bad for a country our size, by the way.
Oh, that's
insane.
Okay, so the population in the state in which I live is approximately 40 million, and we have way more homeless. In fact, California has, I just saw some statistics the other day, we have over 50% of the homeless in the United States currently reside in the state of California. The weather's, oh my God, it's an insane amount. LA County's probably got 50 or 60,000 itself. And Northern California's pretty bad too. I took a beautiful drive to a county near me through a city called Santa Rosa, and they have a highway. It's Highway 12, and it goes from Santa Rosa to Sebastopol, And on the left-hand side, there's this beautiful, beautiful bike trail, right? It's probably about
Oh, wow.
4 to 5 meters across with grass and like a little trail that goes through. But once you get outside the city limit, for miles, it's all blue tarps and people literally living on the side of the bike trail to the fence that borders the freeway or the highway.
Wow.
So it's miles of homeless people living under blue tarps. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
and that's one of the most expensive zip codes, one of the most expensive areas, not just in California, but probably in the United States. Like, it's super affluent out there. So.
Oh, and how come? Is there any plans for the state to do anything about this?
Well, the state of California lost probably 26 or 30 billion dollars solving the problem. We got a ton of money from the federal government to solve the problem. But the issue with that is if I pay you to solve a problem, once you solve the problem, you're done. There's no incentive to solve the problem, right? So
and what kind of ideas did they come up with? Out of curiosity.
How much what now?
What kind of ideas did they come up with?
Nothing that functions, because people would rather do dope than shit inside. Like, honestly, people would rather just do dope. And the weather's nice enough, especially in that area. It doesn't get too hot, doesn't get too cold.
I wouldn't mind being homeless in California. It sounds nice, actually.
Oh, not too bad, you know.
Just saying.
Well, so the state capital in Sacramento, California has over 100 days that are at or above 39 degrees Celsius or 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's rough, right? But as long as you're hydrated and you're in the shade, I mean, people have survived worse for longer, right?
That's true.
But in the winter months, like the state capital is the state of California, and Sacramento is just, you're fine. You'll be fine. Bad. As long as you can find some food, you're good. So, but yeah, that 15,000 number, I think literally almost every state in the United States has, if not that many, then close to that many, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get on.
15,000 people being homeless in the country. Ireland's housing crisis should have been solved long before a refugee crisis became a talking point. Before the 2024 general...
That doesn't discount that it's a problem, right?
It doesn't discount it as a problem, but technically, is he right about our housing issue?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it should have been solved in the last 10 years, if not more.
Oh, yeah.
It should have definitely addressed long before last year.
Well, have the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach addressed this? Have the ministers addressed this?
No, in fairness, in the last budget, they're allocating money to solve the problem now. But
right, okay. So like I was saying,
in
California, they spent 26 to 30 billion dollars they got from the Fed. Yeah. They shoved it off to NGOs that didn't solve the problem and just ate the money, right? Yeah. So is there oversight? I was just saying,
same thing's going to happen here. No, our NGOs are just as corrupt as yours.
That's horrible.
Yeah, they're just as corrupt as you. As I say, I can't speak too much on it, but in my past, I have worked for and worked with many Irish NGOs.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say without a shadow of a doubt, I've worked with 100% volunteer organization. Mm-hmm. Every other one I've worked with are just completely corrupt. If people really want to know how corrupt NGOs are in Ireland, go up to any NGO's HQ in Ireland and just stand outside and count how many Jeeps and BMWs are parked outside.
Right.
Where do you think they got the money for that?
It's magic money. I mean? It's magic money. They found
administration costs.
Rainbow,
administration.
And they caught a leprechaun, and they went to the end of the rainbow.
And they found the magical pot of gold. Yeah.
Right. The magical pot of gold. I love the way you say that. That sounds amazing. Oh, we went to Limerick and we found the pot of gold with the NGOs. The NGO Limerick and the pot of gold. Oh my goodness.
Oh, but it is funny though. It's just mental gymnastics of some of these NGOs. It's hilarious.
Pretty silly.
They turn around and say, "Oh, our NGOs running short of money," but then you turn around and say, "How come you're spending over 1.something million every year on your board of directors? Maybe cut that back. You will have some money." Just, silly ideas like that.
What? But they're managing the money. They need the money to manage the money better.
Manage the money, yeah.
Right? Hey, me. I'm gonna get my bag, son. All right, here we go. All right, Nacho, what do you got?
Election, immigration was fourth on a list of priorities for Irish people, on a mere 7%. Guess what was the highest priority? The Irish political classes have neglected the working classes for at least the last 20 years. The most intense.
All right, so I would like his definition of what the working classes are, because I know you guys have a lot of professionals that work out of the country, and they're called for.
I know he's in Ireland. I know who he's referring to as the working class.
Okay, who's
the
that?
Normal bloke who's working factories, driving taxis, so on. So
okay,
it's absolutely ridiculous. Is the highest paid people in Ireland pay less tax than the lower income people in Ireland.
You don't have a graduated taxation?
We have graduated taxation to a certain degree.
But then you have tax codes with loopholes, of course.
Of course we do, yeah.
Right.
The rich always get away with what he's talking about is we get tax increase after tax increase, and we get a little bit here. Then the general election comes up, and they cut the taxes, and then they bring them back the following year. Everyone knows the same roundabout. It's crazy the fact that it's cheaper, it's easier for you not to work than actually.
Right. Oh, that's so bad. Right. The poverty trap is horrible. My dad told me something when I was a kid. He said, "You know what, son?" I said, "What, Dad?" Because I was his son. And he said, "You know, the rich man gets his ice in the summer, and the poor man gets his ice in the winter. It just feels like that, you know?"
Yes, pretty much, yeah.
Oh, it's so bad.
And plus the fact that a lot of these I'm going to say this in quotations, these so-called far-right movements in Ireland, most of them are just normal, hard-working guys who are just annoyed. They work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Their kids work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And they can't seem to even get on the property ladder or even out of their own family home.
It feels like the labor is functionally being stolen by the government, right?
Yeah.
Money is a representation of labor. Like they're stealing your labor. It feels bad, you know?
And it's crazy. Like a person can fly into Ireland from some other country, and they're guaranteed housing by our government. They're guaranteed a medical card by our government, and any other services that they need straight away.
Okay.
Now, if you if you leave your job in the morning in Ireland, you go down to your local social welfare office. So you have to fill out you get a big bundle of forms. It's like a mini Bible, pretty much. You get so many forms.
This is the King James version of my application for social
King James version of the social welfare form. Now you have an option. You do have an option, in fairness, to do it online. But it's still, But so you get the form, you fill it in, you send it off, you do this, you do that. You're going to be waiting 4, maybe 5 weeks.
Right.
Sometimes you could get lucky, and you might have it within 3 weeks. It depends what the backlog is at the time. Like everything in Ireland. It depends on how long the queue is.
Is that like an unemployment insurance? In the United States, if you there's ways to get an unemployment insurance. So if you're fired, like if you quit, you don't get it.
Right.
But if there's some, like you were fired or like you were laid off or whatever, like then you can apply for those benefits, right? And a lot of the unions in the United States use that as a buffer, right? They will lay you off so you get unemployment benefits. So they functionally use the government to pay their people while they're not working because they, in quotes, lay them off. Yeah, they do wild stuff like that here.
It's way different over here.
Okay.
Way different. So our social welfare system is based on a lot of different factors. So the base rate is $2.44 a week.
Okay.
With a caveat, it's all means tested. So you start the base rate, say $2.44, and then for every 10,000 that you have in assets, you lose €1 a week.
Oh,
and if you have other forms of income like stocks, shares, bonds, rents, whatever else coming in, that starts reducing down.
All right, so you would functionally have to just divest yourself of every income stream to get 244, about €1,000 a month, right? Ish.
€1,000 a month. But then there's the middle card, which is slightly different. Is if you're under the 36,000 a year, the income, even working or non-working, you can apply for a medical card.
Okay.
which is a good system. Social welfare is what is dole. And then we have another organization called our health service, like the NHS and so on. We have the health service over here that manage everything to do with medical, like your medical card, your doctor's only card, prescriptions, and so on.
Right.
We have two different systems, but both function pretty well. But it's different rules for different folks, unfortunately, which is annoying people as well.
So the asylees or those seeking to emigrate are getting in the front of the line and getting all the services and ahead of those who are of Irish descent and have been a part of the Irish culture for thousands of years, functionally, right?
Yes.
Crazy.
They're looked after way better than us.
All right, not Joe.
Hence, an affronting crisis in the state's modern history, the housing crisis, has been allowed to fester to the present moment where homelessness is at its highest rate ever, and any new housing stock has been offered up at the altar of vulture capitalism and kept well out of reach of the tens, if not hundreds of thousands, of people waiting to move out of their parents' spare room or out of their landlord's broom cupboard. One argument of the Irish far right is that Ireland should be housing our own before we house refugees. This point goes further to demonstrate the failures of the Irish government.
That seems like the right answer. I don't know that there's actually an argument that's going to be effective against us, but I think
he did make a very good point there at the start, though.
What's that?
A lot of the properties that NAMA sold off were to vulture funds.
Mm-hmm.
Now they developed them. They turned them into houses and apartments, mainly apartments, and they have basically rented them out to NGOs to house a lot of the refugees. Now, that's where the crux of the problem is as well. A major.
It's the guaranteed money from the government that is going to pay for that. So the taxpayer is funding their own inability to get out of Harry Potter's bedroom. Yeah, like you're stuck, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's right. It is festering. It's festering for 10 plus years. Like I know plenty of young men and women. I know actually one particular couple who live up the road from me in one of the main cities in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Both working professionals.
Mm-hmm.
One in education, one in health. They're making really good money. They have money in the bank, and they just cannot seem to get past the renting part. They can't seem to buy their own property.
So they can't secure a loan. Well, is there just not a place for them because the venture or the vulture capitalists have
the price just keeps going up and up and up. So when they get to a certain point of having the 20% this year, that won't cover the 20% deposit next year.
Patrick,
so it's just always a little bit out.
I got a question for you. So the house that I live in, right? I could not buy this house now.
Yeah.
Right. There's no way I could afford to buy the house. 5 years ago, I bought this place, right? But I could not afford it now. Are you in much the same situation?
Yeah, pretty much. Our housing prices have gone up. It was actually, news? I was thinking News Talk I was listening to.
Mm-hmm.
But they had a property guy on. You know, he buys and sells properties. He's one of those one of the larger companies in Ireland that does that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the last 2 years, properties have gone up well over the 20% mark across the board, easily, just in the last 12 months.
Oh my God, the board. That is insane.
Yeah. Rents have gone up on average over 6% across the board. Some places higher, some places lower, but they're just averaging out across the country. 6%. Doesn't sound like much, but if it's 6% every year,
that's insane.
Where your wages only go up by 0.5% across the board, there's a massive problem.
Well, it just means a larger portion of your income is going to rent, which means that somebody else who's the landlord is getting your labor.
It's gone to the stage in Ireland where many people being interviewed and asked on the street, well over 50% of their income every month goes on rent, just rent.
Right.
That doesn't include their transportation, food, just rent.
Nice. All right, let's let not Joe cook a little more.
Government well before any large-scale arrival of refugees to the country. Dara Adelaide is a people before profit councillor in South Dublin County Council. He points out that there is and has been ample opportunity to house Irish people long before the large-scale arrival of asylum seekers to the country.
Like there's 166,000 empty homes across Ireland. I think 50,000 of them have been empty for more than 6 years.
So these are the structures that you can't put people in?
Yeah.
And this is your people before profit guy you were telling me about, like the one TD
no,
they
this
have?
is no. This is he's one of their councillors.
Okay.
But I think a lot of the major parties have been very critical of the government, very, very down the government. It's not just people for profits. Most of the opposition parties have been down the government, saying,
Okay.
just start building houses, get it done. During our Celtic Tiger days, we could do this. Why can't we do it now? Just invest the money. You should have been doing this for the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think Not Joe is actually right on that one. Like, this is a solvable problem. It should have been solved, but it doesn't mean that you open up to it.
It's no matter where you're coming from. I think we understand that it is the refugees coming in have been preyed upon by these vulture funds, renting out and so on.
Well, right, but then you're also running into an issue where you have a bunch of Roma gypsies and wild stuff going on, where people just won't go down to certain parts of town because they've been overrun by people who are ethnically not Irish at all.
Yeah.
They have no claim to the land and no claim to the culture. They're just sitting on a plot of land and you can't move them. And if you do attempt to move them, then they're screaming and yelling and hollering, you know?
Yeah.
So, all right.
It's a very nasty issue.
There's a lot of public land that hasn't been used that could be used to build housing. I think the problem is we have a housing system that's really set up to make a lot of profit for a small number of people, whether that's investment funds or landlords or letting agents, and the government is unwilling to touch it. They're unwilling to tackle the vulture funds or to tackle dereliction. All these things would bring the cost of rent down, bring the cost of housing down, and I think it's maybe wrong, although I understand why people are angry. That blame doesn't lie with asylum seekers, and you know.
Whoa. That's not necessarily correct.
I kind of agreed with him a lot of his points there until.
So the asylum seekers that are getting into places that the government is renting from landlords, and a lot of those people who are actually your TDs, a lot of them are landlords and property owners and stuff like that. So
if
it seems like, well, they're feathering their own nest.
Yeah, of course they are. Of course, that's the same in every political system. Oh. And as I say, I agree with this young man up to a certain point. Is it the refugees' fault? Yes and no. Yes and no, I've always said. They have a choice to come to Ireland or not.
The government could have said, no, you can't come here.
It comes down to our government having the neck to say, do you know what? We're full. Other European countries have done it.
Well, why can't Ireland get their back up and just say no? Like, what's wrong with that? Why not? No, you can't come here.
Unfortunately, our governments, like previous governments, have always tried to be the best in class at everything.
Right, but then they say wild shit and do stupid stuff.
Yeah. Until now, it's what they don't understand is if this has annoyed so many people in Ireland, has brought all sides together. If you know what I mean?
Right. Like, well, if there's a rallying point, that's a good one. Like, stop doing the thing, right?
Yes.
All right, let's let this guy finish. You got about, not too much. Let's finish it up.
They're not taking up housing. They're being put in old office blocks and living in tents in the city centre. The problem really isn't refugees. It's not asylum seekers. It's not migration. It's this sort of economic system that we have that's set up to benefit just the wealthy, just the property owners, just the investment funds.
Ireland isn't full.
Okay, he missed on the end there. He missed massively on the end there. But I mean, what are you going to do, right? So
well, he is who he is. But the funny thing is, I find it hard to understand why people don't realize that the more people we leave in is the less space that we have across the board in all our systems. When people talk about Ireland is full, we're not just talking about housing.
Well, it's not your per capita. It's not your per capita people. It's all the services and infrastructure that can't bear the weight of more people. So oh my goodness,
schools are full, or everything's full.
Well, I think we're gonna have to button this one up. Not Joe with a slappable face. Thank you so much for your time. For Patrick McCallum, I am Alex Johansson. Like and love it. Ring the bell. Do the thing, and we'll catch you on the next one, Patrick.